Today I'm going to talk about temporary living arrangements. The reason why I want to speak on this is because we have a current situation that's going on in the world where people had to adjust their finances by downscaling their expenses, and in order to do that, in some cases, people have had to go from living alone to going to living with someone else, or if they do live alone, they probably had to take in others in order to, scale down the expenses. And I mean, that's the frugal thing to do. Um, so, I wholeheartedly understand that. But barring the world situation, let's just pretend it never happened. Let's just say under normal circumstances, there are some cases where there are some people in this world who just don't have any goals or any long-term plans for themselves. And they do what they call couch surfing, moving from person to person to person to person without any desire of getting their own. And what they do is they just get a little bit while they stay with this person and then move on and then get a little bit while they stay with this person. And they do it for years until they officially declare themselves as independent and they think they have everything they need. And then they wonder why they have problems holding on to it because they've never been completely responsible for anything in their lives. Let me give you a case in point, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Let's say that you have a person who's never lived independently before for whatever reason. I mean, they could be like in their mid-20s, early 30s, whatever the case is. It's not a situation where they're mentally or physically incapacitated or anything like that. This person has just had no desire of being alone and being self-sufficient. So let's say they lost their job or whatever the case may be, and you have that one cousin that always been by themselves, been self-sufficient, done well, able to pay their bills on time every month, maybe late every now and then. But for the most part, everything is in their name and they take care of their obligations and they're able to keep their household, and they've been doing it for a while. So this person comes to him and says, look, I just lost my job, or, my significant other and I broke up and everything was in their name, so I left. I need to crash with you for a while. And like I said, this is a common situation. Now, there are two different types of people that wind up doing this. They wind up moving in with someone and they already have a plan in mind and know it's temporary. And the minute they go in the door, they've already got a plan as to what they're going to do, and they're making moves like quick, fast, in a hurry. Then you have the other kind who just come in with, they got a huge sad sob story, and they haven't indicated to you what they're going to do. They haven't shown you anything. So we're going to talk about the second people, because first people are pretty cool. The second people are the ones that I call them, they're scammers. What they'll do is they'll wear out their welcome with somebody else. When that person gets hip to the fact that this person isn't doing anything with themselves, then they tell them that they got to leave. So what they'll do is, instead of just trying to build something for themselves, they'll try to seek out the next person, and it's usually a family situation. They'll try to seek out the next person who has some digs, and they'll go ahead and say, you know what, I need to get in with them. And they'll go ahead and create this huge sob story about how everything is so hard for them and blah, 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 and it's so rotten and this, that, and the other. And it's always, something being done to them. They never are to blame for anything. And they say, well, I need to stay with you for a little while till I get my place. Knowing in the back of their mind they have no place. They haven't applied for a place. They don't have a dime saved up. A lot of cases, they don't even have a source of income where they have any money saved up. And they come in, and, you out of the kindness of your heart, you're like, okay, this is family. This is an old college friend. This is an old friend, whatever the case may be. I'm going to go ahead and let them, stay with me. A week pass, month pass, you don't hear anything, they don't say anything to you. You go to work, you come home every day, or if you work from home, you go to the home office and you come in, and this person's doing the same thing every single day. They are playing games on the computer or on the PlayStation or the Xbox, or They're watching the binge watching movies, or they might be just hanging out over at such and such house all day long, but they never sat down and talked to you. Now, mind you, it's been a whole month. Haven't showed you anything, hasn't talked to you about their job searches, don't have a job, haven't talked to you about an income. If they're looking to build a business, they haven't discussed anything. They haven't made any moves. Bottom line, they're doing the same thing on day 30 that they were doing on day 1. Now, I know the economy is rough. Don't get me wrong. The economy is rough. I get that. But some of these people were doing this before the world situation started. They already had this attitude. And now that the world situation is the way it is, they're really taking advantage of it by blaming it on the world situation. So what you need to do is you need to do your due diligence and investigate. Before you let that person stay there too long, if it's day 30 and something's going on where they're not doing anything and they hadn't said anything to you, first of all, you need to ask them, what's the plan? What's going on? What's the deal? What moves are you making? Because if they haven't said anything to you in the first 30 days that they're there, absolutely nothing, and they have nothing but sob story after sob story after sob story, and they haven't done anything to advance their situation, 9 times out of 10, they have no intention of going anywhere. I hate to hurt your feelings, but they have no intention of going anywhere. That has been their MO. So what you need to do is on day 31, because they're not going to give you a straight answer, more than likely. They're probably going to give you some sob story about, oh, well, I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that. And then they'll turn around and say, well, because of the world situation, everything's so hard and everything. Okay, but it's been 30 days and you've done nothing. You haven't sent out one resume. You haven't filled out one application. If you're trying to build a business, you haven't devised a business plan. You haven't created any clientele. You haven't done anything in the first 30 days while you're there. No. So you as an individual, you need to do some research. You need to try to find out what's been happening with this person prior to them coming into your house. And the best way to do it, if it's a family member that's doing it all the time, what you need to do is you need to talk to some of the other family members. I mean, don't come completely straight out and say everything that's going on in the home, but just, generally ask about them. Just bring up their name in conversation when you talk to other people and just listen and see what they have to say. And you will be surprised because you're going to have at least 2 or 3 of them. The minute you bring up their name, some of them are already going to say, oh, they stayed with me, but you know what? They wasn't doing nothing and they had to go. And if you hear that from 2 or 3 or more, at least 2 or 3 other people, this is what that person does. They're not about nothing. They're not trying to do anything. Now, if you hear it from one person, okay, maybe you might want to reconsider that because you don't know what that person's motivation is and you don't know what happened with that. But if you hear the same testimony from 2, 3 different people about this person and their living habits, more than likely that's who they are. Especially if these 2, 3 people that you have talked to, they don't even have a relation with each other. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have a cousin that you grew up with or whatever the case may be. And they were all about their street life all their life. And now that things have slowed down because they can't be in the streets anymore because of medical condition or they've done too much time and they're scared to get locked up again or whatever the case may be, their priority should be trying to secure something. It should be trying to secure something where they can take care of themselves, or at least if they're in a situation where they're living with someone, they should make every effort to try to build a life for themselves. But some people their mind is still in the streets. They're still thinking about yesterday where they were balling and rolling, and they're not making any moves. They're not doing anything. They're refusing to accept their current situation. So what they'll do is they'll go to this person and stay with them for a while and use up all their resources and everything else. And then here it is, 6 months, 3 to 6 months later, sometimes a year later, that person will lose their patience and say, look, you got to find somewhere to go because you're not making any moves. And then all of a sudden they have a big falling out. And then, this guy or girl, whoever it was that was doing it, all of a sudden they're the victim. So what they'll do is they'll take that story and make it seem like it's so horrible and this person was so wrong, they threw him out. And then they'll go to the next person. And it might not be a relative. It might be something that somebody that they're involved with that they hadn't known for very long. And they'll come to them with this soft person and say, oh, well, I was staying with cousin so-and-so, but, cousin so-and-so put me out because, I got this story going on and that story going on. And then they wind up living with them. Another 6 months to a year later, they hadn't made any moves with them, used up all their resources, and then they got to go. Then they go to the third person. Now, mind you, the relative that they were living with, and this new girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever they moved in, they don't even know each other. Don't even know each other. So then here he is on the phone, calling all the other relatives. He or she is on the phone trying to call other relatives with their sob story about how they're getting put out. But they're not going to tell you about the other person. They're just going to mention one story because they know it's going to look shady. So they're going to try to make it seem like it's so horrible and, I got all this going on and blah, 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 blah. So y'all see where I'm going with this? It's a pattern. It's a pattern. So what you need to do is if this person has not done anything within 30 days or at least given a plan or discussed any plans or anything for their independence, they had no intention of going anywhere when they moved in with you in the first place. They had no intention. And if they intend on going anywhere because of their history, they probably figured another 6 months to a year that you're going to put them out because they're not doing anything. They would have latched on to somebody else. This is what they do. So the best thing for you to do, I'm not saying not to keep your doors open to these people. Help if you could offer the help. But the thing is that the average person, if they're there the first month, they would have had something to show for it as far as trying to be on the track of getting out of there and getting their own place. Because they have the mentality of understanding that it's temporary. First 30 days, if they haven't said anything or done anything or made any moves, they have no intention of going anywhere. Now, after the first 30 days, then they should be on that track to whatever they're doing. And within 6 months, if they don't have a secure income and they don't have any prospects of moving, if they haven't moved already, then they need to go. And they darn sure don't need to be in your digs for a year and haven't done anything. They should not be in your place for a whole year and have not done anything. There's no way. I'm sorry, they might be getting, food stamps or a little bit of assistance. That's fine to help you during the, for the month. And if you think that's okay for them to stay there and not do anything else, that's fine. But the average person is going to say that that's not enough simply because their household expenses are just way too high to just accept a living person that's only going to contribute maybe $300 worth of food stamps a month. I mean, if you're living in an apartment or something somewhere, you got at least $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 worth of bills a month. So there's a little couple of $300. That's really not going to do anything if you got a full body person there. You need somebody who is there who's contributing at least $1,000, at least. If you got expenses for at least $2-3 grand. Now, if you don't mind that and you can afford, to foot most of the expenses every single month, and you're cool with that in your heart and you're happy, that's fine because I'm not going to interfere with your happiness. But the average person is not going to have that. They're not going to have $2,000 to $4,000 worth of bills every single month and have somebody come in and they can't even put up at least a third to a half of that. They're not going to have it. They can't afford it. They can't afford it. So I'm just saying this to be mindful. I know we're in tough times right now, and I know people have to get together and, kind of do what they have to do until they can get on their feet. But before you let somebody in the door that you're not sure of, what they should do is they should have some kind of plans and have the ball rolling on something as far as trying to get out of your place. Because if you don't see or hear anything within the first 30 days and they haven't said anything to you, which I think is rude anyway, if they hadn't said anything to you within the first 30 days of what their intent is and at least trying to make some moves, they have no intention of going anywhere. And I hate to hurt your feelings, and I'm sorry about that, but it is what it is. You got to understand, you could have a relationship with a person, be it a relative or a friend, and y'all can get along great for years, but when it comes to money, it could be a totally different story. And I've heard stories over and over again about people who've known each other for years, distant cousins who grew up together, and people who went to school together. Y'all hung out and chased girls and everything else, and went through school together, and you joined the frat and everything else. But when it came down to that money and opening in that wallet, it fell apart within months. And these stories happen every single day. So you as the person who is the head of the household, you need to do your due diligence and make sure that you know what's going on. That you know what's going on and pay attention to the signs. I'm just saying this because, people work hard for what they have. And it doesn't make any sense for you to put in all the blood, sweat, and tears for the little bit of stuff you have just to have somebody come in off the street and mess it all up for you in a matter of months. It's not fair to you. So just take that tip and make sure you do that research. As I stated before, first 30 days, if you hadn't heard or seen anything and you ask about it and all you get is a sob story, start investigating and asking around in the inner circle of people that are familiar with them. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to come across at least 2 or 3 people that have the same story that you got. And then what you need to do is you need to go ahead and let them know, look, you got so much time to get out of here. And when you do that, you make sure you exercise their time frame too. Because if you don't, they're going to use that to their advantage. And before it's time for them to leave, all of a sudden they're going to get sick or this tragic thing is going to happen right before it's time, right before the deadline. Because that's the mentality that's going on with them. That's how they've gotten by all this time. So you got to be careful. Just saying.